Mr. President,
Senator from Arkansas is recognized.
I ask unanimous consent that the order for the quorum call be rescinded.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Every time I travel the great state of Arkansas, I meet farmers and ranchers that help feed America and the world. That's just how prevalent that agriculture is in my home state. It's our #1 industry. It accounts for $16 billion annually to the state's economy. That's the reason that I asked for a seat on the Agricultural Committee. I wanted to help Arkansas's food producers, our farmers, that are working to develop and implement policies to increase production and provide them with the tools and resources that they need to continue their important work. There are two immediate concerns that I hear as I travel the state. One, they want us to wrap up the work on a new farm bill. They want to know what the rules are going to be for the next 5 years as they go and visit with their bankers. And two, they don't want us to go over the fiscal cliff. Arkansas farmers are concerned about what inaction on tax reform means to their livelihood. In particular, one of the areas that they fear is a rise in the already high and unnecessary tax burden they face when inheriting a loved one's farm or ranch. The death tax makes planning and passing on farms and businesses to the next generation even more difficult. Oftentimes, the cost is too much to absorb, and families end up spending their hard-earned money on attorney's fees, selling their land or part of the business or assets, or laying off workers just to pay Uncle Sam. If the President and the Senate majority refuse to compromise on the tax portion of the fiscal cliff agreement, the death tax will rise dramatically. Arkansas farmers will be forced to hand over to Uncle Sam up to 55% of the value of family farm estates that are worth more than $1 million beginning in 2013. This would have a truly devastating impact on nearly a quarter of Arkansas's family farms and ranches. With 97% of Arkansas's farms being family-owned, there's great concern among these agriculture producers, among our farmers, our timberland owners, about the current inaction on the fiscal cliff, the fiscal crisis. A good example is Alan Nipper. He's a timber landowner who operates a tree farm in Magnolia, Arkansas. He wrote to me about what he rightfully calls multiple taxation. He says, "We know our lands provide clean water and wildlife habitats that benefit society in general without us expecting a handout or a payment for providing those services." He goes on to say, "But then at my death, the government wants to take up to 55% of the value after I've invested my efforts into providing those benefits. That's not right, nor is it fair." I agree with Al. Part of the American dream is creating an inheritance that we can pass on to our future generations. Our farmers and small businesses deserve to pass along their investments to their heirs without having to worry about the tax. That's why I introduced legislation to actually eliminate the death tax. While this idea won't be included in the final tax deal, these hardworking families can't afford Congress to allow the death tax to return to 55%. It's simply unacceptable. At the very least, we need to maintain current policy for another year until we are able to implement and provide a more permanent solution. We owe it to these hardworking families to work together to solve this issue.